Welcome to our afternoon session. I think all of you have pretty much gotten your bearings in this building, but just in case you need them, there are restrooms and water fountains out these doors. So Jay mentioned me and I waved reluctantly from the back of the room earlier. My name's Christy Howell. I'm Education and Engagement Coordinator here at JCCC. And this is one of the events that I get to work with every year. And I'm very fortunate at these events to meet folks like Rex and Cynthia early this morning, and Patty. So for those of you who looked at our agenda early on, you may have noticed there's been a shift in that agenda, and Patty Clark from the Kansas Leadership Council has been kind enough to come in and help us contextualize what we can do with all this great information that we've learned today, and how we can change our communities and our state and make it a better place. Patty is the Vice President for the Kansas Leadership Center in Wichita. She spent 7 years with the USDA as Rural Development State Director in Kansas. So she's got a lot of policy experience that she's going to bring to bear today. I encourage y'all to ask questions and engage with your table mates. If y'all want to condense tables, you know, I see my pair back there looking at each other like, okay. If y'all want to condense tables or join others and make your tables a little bit more of a small community, feel free to do so. We have no back row Baptists here, folks, so come on up. Feel free to ask questions. I'm sure Patty will welcome those. And with that, let's welcome Patty.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I really would like this to be more of a dialogue than me just standing up here and giving you a monologue. So as questions come into your head, just shout them out, raise your hand, whatever, just, oh, is it working now? Okay. A little bit of my background. I've worked with Rex Buchanan for what, 20 or 25 years, Rex, on a variety of water and environmental issues at the state level and the federal level. I've served on the interagency task force at the state level that dealt with water management, both surface water and aquifer management. I've worked, when I worked for the USDA, I managed a $3 billion portfolio of loans and grants, a lot of which were for financing water and sewer projects in rural communities. So I've kind of crisscrossed the world of water management and water policy development through about a 20-25 year career. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then towards the end, I want to talk a little bit about how you view leadership as an activity, not as a position, not as authority, and how you weave that into how you might interact on the policy and water management front in the future, depending on what career path or what volunteer activities you want to become involved in. First thing I wanted to do was just simply to pull up the Kansas Water Office website. And I wanted to show you and talk a little bit about how water is managed in the state of Kansas, how that's a little bit different than other states, and actually how inclusive and how participatory it can be if you choose to make it so. Kansas water rights are first in time, first in right. That's a huge piece of the water policy in the state of Kansas. But beyond that, there are a number of organizations, entities, agencies that manage water for the state of Kansas. We have a really dispersed water management system in our state. And when you have something, a commodity, which water is, that is kind of supply and demand, up and down, up and down, up and down, and Kansas is a bit of an arid state, so it's a commodity that can become quite precious in times of drought. Having that dispersed management system is really a good thing, rather than having one water czar or one water czar department. We've got the Kansas Water Office and the Kansas Water Authority, and that's the umbrella organization that manages water. You've got the Kansas Geological Survey, the Division of Water Resources at the Department of Agriculture. They're the ones that do the water permitting, water quantity. KDHE does water quality, groundwater management districts, intensive groundwater use control areas, which are also called IGUCAs, State Conservation Commission, water assurance districts, multi-state compacts, irrigation districts. The newest one is LEMAs, which is the water conservation voluntary efforts. And now we've added a whole nother set of regional advisory committees. And that's an outgrowth of what used to be called the River Basin Advisory Committees for the state of Kansas. They help inform the water vision that was established a couple years ago. A blue ribbon task force was created from those regional advisory committees to try and figure out how to fund the 50-year water vision. But essentially what I'm trying to paint for you is a picture that you can intersect with water no matter where you live, no matter what position you have, no matter what you seek to do professionally or as a volunteer. Because the regional advisory committees are not just comprised of irrigators. They're not just comprised of municipal water systems. They're not just comprised of experts like Rex and others who have been working in water forever. They are comprised by people who have an interest in recreational use of water, of industrial use, of commercial use, as well as all the other types of users. There's spots on those advisory committees for those various interest groups. So what I'm trying to explain is simply you have the opportunity, if you so choose, to pull the trigger on it. So questions at this point? Okay.
Here's a question, real quick. So if I'm new to the way that government works, broadly defined, and I hear that list of stuff, right? Why should I not go running from the room in terror, right? Because that just sounds like an awful lot of stuff.
It's an a la carte menu of ways to become engaged in water management and water use in the state of Kansas. And almost all of it is statutorily created. So it's in law, which is really, really unusual. Colorado does not manage their water this way. Oklahoma does not manage their water this way. But it is an a la carte menu of a choice of professions and a choice of volunteer activities.
Well, when you talked earlier about leadership, I get to teach horticulture and environmental science at Northwest, and one of my big areas of interest is xeriscape, and you know the idea of getting what that is, obviously, and so I can see a lot of homeowners association fighting that. But yet, if we're going to talk about water rights and we're going to talk about wasting water, wouldn't that maybe be an area to get into for cities and municipalities to stop wasting so much water on grass?
It's interesting that you bring that up. I was just in Colorado visiting a friend at a senior development. It's for 55 and older. And their homeowners association does not allow for xeriscapes without specific permission from the HOA, because they want the green grass and they want the trees and the flowers and the shrubs. And they even have a waterfall at the entry of their development, their housing development, which recirculates the water, but there's still significant water use. The answer is yes and yes. And you will see in places that are becoming more and more arid over time with climate change occurring with the change in weather, with the extremes happening more frequently, you will see, and again, like I told you as we were bridging to this, your generation is the one that's going to end up providing the solutions. It's gone past my generation. Your generation is the one that's going to have to figure this out. Much as I would like to say, my generation's done it, we haven't.
So with my students here, what would you tell them to, like, what area do you go into in college to get the expertise to sway the minds of these people that running these HOAs and I mean even like
Urban planning is a great major for anyone who is interested in natural resource management. Urban planning is going to be the place where a lot of things happen. Intersect that while you're in college with some environmental coursework, with maybe some horticultural coursework, with some political science coursework. That's going to equip you to find a place to work that is rewarding financially, career path-wise, and probably for your gut as well. That's a great combination. And urban planners, the architects, engineers, but mix it with some poli-sci, mix it with some history, mix it with some agricultural courses of some kind. Turf management is another good one. Forestry. And I will tell you that despite everything you hear, federal government is going to be a good place to work 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, in housing and urban development, in the Forest Service. And the reason I say that is even if there are cuts to employment at the federal level, there is an entire generation of federal workforce that's going to be rotating out of the federal workplace. They're all going to be retiring. There's like an 80% turnover coming in the next 5 to 7 years because of retirement. So those are really good things, but don't silo yourself. Make sure you're picking up coursework that is complementary from the political science, policy, history advantage, okay? Other questions? Okay, I want to talk a little bit, let's say for a moment, everybody in this room wants to engage in water use, water management professionally or as a volunteer at some future point in time. What's going to equip you, not only in terms of discipline that you study, degree that you achieve, but what are some of the things that are going to equip you to have an impact, to make sure your voice is heard when the opportunity arises? And that's where I'm going to weave in Kansas Leadership Center believes that leadership is an activity, not a position. Leadership is an activity, not a position of authority. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can exercise leadership as long as you're equipped to do so with some skill sets. Our framework at the Leadership Center is what we call technical versus adaptive. The technical pieces of leadership are drawing that map and creating the regional advisory committees and setting up a bit of a process for them to function. The adaptive leadership in water management in Kansas is trying to figure out how to get all the different voices to the table. It's trying to figure out how to fund that water vision that you just spent 2.5 years to create, because you're not going to make everybody happy in terms of those funding mechanisms. There's going to be a lot of arguments when you start to talk about taxation, when you start to talk about pulling from the state budget that already has a whole set of challenges. That's technical versus adaptive. We also talk a lot about the 4 competencies upon which we built our leadership curriculum. First one, diagnose the situation. Second one, manage yourself. Third one, learn how to intervene skillfully. And fourth one is learn how to energize others around your ideas, around your thoughts. But the first one is really, really important, and it's where leadership does not spend enough time, and that's in diagnosing the situation. What's really going on? We default to our own interpretations, and we don't listen with the intent to hear, not just to respond, but we don't listen to what other people are telling us. We're not using an inclusive process to hear from all the stakeholders. Okay, I want to go around the room. I'm going to pick on every single table. If you're going to have a plan and get it funded in the state of Kansas to manage water to the point to which the entire state has its say, who do you need at the table to have that discussion? Who needs to be at the table?
I feel like representatives from like each part of Kansas, so like the whole state is heard,
So
not just one person.
Geographic distribution of opinions and thoughts. Who else needs to be in at the table?
The governor, I don't know.
Pardon?
Like the governor?
Elected officials at the highest and lowest level, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, like maybe city clerks in Stanton County. Who else?
Lawyers and judges.
Lawyers and judges. And why would we need lawyers and judges to help us with water policy?
To make sure that they know the right laws.
And that we might end up going to court.
Kansas Geological Survey.
I'll tell you a story about that in just a second. But yeah, the Kansas Geological Survey, the scientific receptacle of everything we need to know about water. Who else needs to be at that table? If we're going to get it right and we're going to get buy-in, who else needs to be at the table?
People involved with like agriculture.
Ag producers, farmers and ranchers who use somewhere between 80 and 90% of the water used every year is used by farmers and ranchers. Who else?
Oh, probably those pointy-headed intellectuals from the universities to provide some insight from time to time.
The Brain Trust for the state of Kansas. The ones who research as well as teach. Who else?
Like a scientist. Like water.
The scientists?
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe not just from Kansas, but maybe from states who are already dealing with this, like Arizona and New Mexico and California. They might shed some light. Who else? You look like you want to contribute.
I'm confused. I feel like everything's already been listed. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm sure outside influence of some sort.
Okay.
Probably the people.
Say it again.
People like us.
Wouldn't it be nice to have your
Yeah.
age group at the table, since you're the ones that are going to have to deal with the decisions that get made today? Who else? Private companies, industries that use water in the state of Kansas, maybe the aviation industry, the manufacturing industries. those types of water uses, commercial groups,
Anything private.
okay? Developers,
Lawn care, all sorts of people.
great point. Lawn care services, sprinkler system installers. When you think about water use, we use it every day. There's a lot of interest at the table. I didn't hear recreational users,
I didn't hear property owners.
okay? Property owners in the city, in the country, across the board.
Specifically, the people that own the property from legislature, as well as the people that live in the east.
And might the property owners on the western slope, so to speak, of Kansas maybe have a little bit different opinion than the property owners on the eastern side, just if for no other reason, rainfall on an annual basis?
And those property owners out west own a lot more property acreage-wise.
They do. They do.
That point about recreation is interesting. And no one here mentioned recreation. That's, I think, a focus of where we are, right?
Uh-huh. One of the challenges, I don't know if Rex brought it up or not, the aqueduct project. Did you talk about it? Okay. Part of the challenge to an I mean, there's a whole lot of challenges in terms of building an aqueduct from the Missouri River up north of Kansas City, north of here, to southwest Kansas. But one of them is we don't have a compact with the other states through which the Missouri River rolls. Without a compact, you can't begin to negotiate the capture of water from the Missouri. And really, it's recreational interests to the north, in North Dakota and South Dakota, that would be at the table in terms of that determination of capturing water when it hits Kansas City, because it might impact recreational use upstream. So having that recreational use is going to be really, really important. That's a very, very strong voice. Okay, just traveling around these tables, there were probably 15 different interests that needed to be at the table in design and implementation of a water vision. Now, I know you talked a little bit about funding this morning for that vision, and that funding is in question. Here we've spent, as a state, nearly 3 years developing a fairly inclusive water management vision for the next 50 years, and we can't figure out how to pay for it. And why do you imagine that is? That's an exercise in leadership, trying to figure out how to pay for that vision that has now been constructed that says we're going to be able to continue to do most of what we've always done in Kansas if we can adopt this vision in terms of water management. But we can't seem to get that funding mechanism to the finish line. Why is that? Any thoughts? Go ahead. Pardon?
Taxes.
And what about them?
They keep raising
Lesson in leadership from one of the things that we talk about at the Kansas Leadership Center, because you just nailed it, competing values. We don't take time diagnosing the situation to understand the values that are competing with each other to get to a really good adaptive solution for an adaptive challenge. Competing for those taxes, who else is right now competing for those taxes in the state of Kansas, those tax dollars? Teachers. School districts. Lawsuit was just determined in terms of Kansas's underfunding its K through 12 public education as well as higher education. So we have this whole set of school districts that populate our entire state that's competing for those tax dollars. What other competing values do we have for the 1/10 of 1 cent of sales tax that they finally determined was what was going to be used to fund the water vision? Who else is competing for that?
Law enforcement?
Okay. They're having a heck of a time keeping the highway patrol at a level of employment that allows for 1 highway patrolman per county. Just in most rural counties, that's sufficient. We used to have that. We don't have it anymore because we can't get highway patrol recruits for the wages that the state is paying. Health and safety. Health and safety is another competing value for those tax dollars. What else is competing?
Road maintenance.
Highways. We've been robbing the highway fund for over 5 years. And what's occurring? Roads and bridges are in bad shape. Locks and dams where they do occur are getting in tough shape. We can't do any new projects in the places that are growing. So that's another competing value. What else?
Government wages.
Government wages. Talk a little more about that.
I mean, I'm going to use the federal government as an example, but the Senate will vote to increase their pay. Therefore, that money is taken away from the overall spending. And so I guess the same could be applied here to Kansas.
State of Kansas, I mean, it's a great example. I think it was the House in their budget bill voted to give state workers a raise for the first time in over a decade. And the Senate pulled that out of their version because they said as much as we'd like to do that, as much as we would like to give state workers a raise, we can't afford to right now. Another competing value. What else?
The desire to cut taxes would be a competing value.
It's not just about the spending of what you've got, but there is a sector that is very interested in continuing to lower taxes and thus shrink government. So that's another competing value. But what are we holding in our hands when we talk about those competing values as it relates to your discussion today?
Our future? Our future.
Because?
It's important.
In the state of Kansas, where goes water, goes the fate of the state. Because we just simply, in a good percentage of our counties, don't have enough. And the water supply that we do have, particularly west of Wichita, just can't continue to be used at the rate it's being used. I'm going to give you a really good example and then open it up if you have any other questions. And this goes back to Rex Buchanan and the Kansas Geological Survey. And it really gets to the diagnosing of the situation. And by that, I mean you get to the very core issue, not the stuff that's, being shouted and yelled about. But you take a deep dive and you really look at what's the real problem here, not just what we're seeing on the surface. 3 or 4 years ago, I actually was on detail in DC at USDA. And the young man who served as my water and environmental programs director gave me a call. And he said, Patty, he said, we've got a real challenge. He said, we've got 2 huge projects in our funding pipeline. And he said, we need you to walk over and talk to the program administrator and get permission to get these funded this fiscal year. And they were projects in Lakin, Kansas, which is far west, southwest, and in Oberlin, Kansas, which is northwest, north central Kansas. Neither community is 1,100, 1,500 people maybe. And they were both about $6 million projects. And they were both a result of uranium contamination. And I don't know if you know much about the elements, but uranium's not something you want to mess with in terms of having it in your water supply. And I said, Kent, we'll figure out the funding, we'll get that secured, but when I get back to Kansas, I want to pull together all of the water people, Kansas Geological Survey included, because Oberlin's way over here, and Laken's way down here, and that's a pretty good distance between the two, and they're both incurring uranium contamination. How much more of this are we going to see? How many more $6 million projects are we going to have to fund and find half grant for? So we pulled everybody together, and much to my relief, Kansas Geological Survey had already done a lot of the research on uranium contamination. They knew why it was occurring in Oberlin. And they knew why it was occurring in Oberlin was different than why it was occurring in Laken. And we had a great discussion, and for at least a little bit, my heart kind of settled down. I wasn't quite as anxiety-ridden as I had been. But one of the things that they discovered in their research was uranium was diluted from the water supply that fed Laken and communities along the Ark River by water in Colorado. It's naturally occurring as the Ogallala decreases, those concentrations get greater, but it had been diluted, except that now we were going through a drought and we weren't getting the dilution effect from Colorado that we normally do. My point in this is we understood the cause, but the root challenge, Rex isn't getting the funding he used to get to do this very important basic research on water contamination and water availability in the state of Kansas. And so without this very basic important research, we're going to be guessing in terms of the solutions that need to be applied. And that's what I'm talking about when I say get to the root, diagnose. I walked out of there and my immediate fears had been dissipated. But I also knew that Rex's budget had been hit many, many times and continues to be hit. And minus that investment, that public investment in research, water management in Kansas is going to be a little more fragile. So, as you go out and you think about getting into water management, environmental issues, whether it's from the private sector, the public sector, or the nonprofit sector, keep in mind, dig deep. Don't go with that first surface interpretation. Get all the stakeholders at the table when you're trying to find solutions. Listen to those alternative voices that you don't always get to hear. Not just to react to them, but to really listen to what they're telling you. And you can exercise leadership anytime, anywhere, with anyone else.
Who's in charge of PSAs?
Public service announcements.
I mean, like, if these kids get all juiced up and they want to educate, you know, starting with their own school and then seeing how far that goes. When it gets to that, getting it on television, getting it on the radio, who do you go see for that?
Broadcasters are the ones that kind of uptake an issue and help create a public service announcement. But I will wager that what these people could do in a week's time on social media these days could just blow a PSA out of the water in terms of number of people that they reach with what they have to say, what they think, what you care about. My only caution on the social media, make sure it's an informed blog post. Make sure it's an informed tweet. You're not just guessing at what you're talking about. And this is a very complex issue. Water management and water use is probably the most complex issue that Kansas faces right now. So know what you're talking about. Make those tweets informed. But they can socialize this issue in a heartbeat with how you use social media and how you reach each other with what you care about.
But is there a state agency that if we, like, I'm just thinking out loud, we get all the high schools involved in this educational PSA piece about where we are, and all the science, and we get Rex to get his face on this PSA, and we get our...
Yeah, and you outwent Duck at this point.
We get our, you know, our e-com kids, and they put stuff together, competition-wise, whatever. Who would they go to the state to say, all right, let's get this out there to the public? Is there an agency in our government, in the state agency, that we could maybe get something like this started where, you know, Johnson County kids are in a bubble?
Kansas Water Office, Tracy Streeter.
Okay.
One place to start is not with telling them what you care about, but having a group of students show up for the Kansas Water Authority meeting and listening. Start with listening. That's where leadership starts.
They will notice you're there. 'Cause
Yes.
they're normally not there.
And just start it with Johnson County feels like it's an island in this water management system, and we know how critical it is to our future. We want to become engaged. We want to learn.
Is she a Johnson County? Oh, Tracy.
Tracy Streeter is the director of the Kansas Water Office.
And that's in Topeka?
It's in Topeka. They have quarterly meetings.
The water office is the agency, and then there's an advisory group called the Kansas Water Authority that you referred to. They meet quarterly. They met in January in Topeka. I'm not sure.
May in Garden City and August in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they move around the state. There is also, in November every year, there's a
Governor's
major
Water
statewide
Conference.
meeting. It's
Yep.
held in Manhattan called Governor's Water Conference, Water in the Future of Kansas. I don't ever see any high school students there. I see college students, and there are competitions for posters, but I don't think I've ever seen, that I know of, any high school kids there. And that's probably a place that would be easy to make a noise from.
Both of those would be a great interaction, a way to start. But again, I would suggest to you that the way to start it is to express interest, that we care about this issue in our state. We know, who was it that said it over here? It's the fate of the state at risk. And we want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. But we know we have to learn. We know we have to hear. We know we have to understand the issue a little bit deeper before we really get engaged. And so that's why we want to attend. That's why we want to hear the speakers. That's why we want to engage with the Water Authority. And if you want introduction to Tracy Streeter, Rex or I can get it for you. Comments, questions? Does it matter to you? Does any of this matter to you? Or is it all just really, really, really confusing right now? How many of you think you might choose a career path in urban planning, water management, environmental sciences, political science. Okay, and why?
Something I'm passionate about
Okay,
more than any other thing. I don't know. I like listening to this more than anything else in school.
okay. And why are you interested?
Just because it's like this is the like earth that we live on, and I just feel like it's our responsibility to like take care of it, and that's not what we do in our day-to-day lives. And so I just feel like that needs to happen and become a part of people's lives at some point, because the way it's going now, obviously that's not people's, but like I feel like the way that we're treating the earth is kind of on the back burner when it should be very prominent in our day-to-day thinking.
Little things we can do now. You don't have to do this all in one big bite. There's little things as individuals we can do today, and I'll give you a really good example. Senator Marcy Francisco from Lawrence. I've worked with Marcy for years on a number of different volunteer organizations. There's one thing she does it religiously. She always takes her own plate, silverware, and cup when she's going to be eating lunch or dinner or breakfast somewhere, and she knows that they're probably going to be using disposable flatware and cutlery and plates. Just one person, but she never has to dispose of a foam plate or plastic cutlery or a mug or cup of any kind. One little thing, if we all did it. She puts it away in a sack and washes it when she gets home and takes it with her the next day.
So how many of these people have copied her?
Have what?
Have copied her in these various meetings where the same people might possibly be there? How many people have followed suit?
A few.
Cool.
A few. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I am a lot more conscious about that just because she was setting such a high bar for daily participation in making the planet a better place, a more sustained environment. And she doesn't make a big deal out of it, she just does it. If somebody asks her, what are you doing? She will always say, well, it's just my small way of making the planet a better place. So you can take some steps like this in your journey to get there. You can exercise leadership with little steps as well as big steps. Any other thoughts before you end up your day?
I'll make a connection with one thing that Rex and Cynthia mentioned this morning that is really important. Both of our speakers this morning told us how important it is to get people to think about the future, right? Not just constantly depleting the aquifer that's there, but thinking about what's not going to be available for future generations. And a large part of getting people to change their line of thinking is being able to tell better stories about why water is important to each one of us individually. And I think that's something else that we've touched on occasionally here too. And that's something that you can do starting today going forward, regardless of where you end up, whether you end up in policy or whether you end up as an accountant or a historian or whatever. You can do that without a lot of, because it's always a story that's going to change, right? As you grow and you do more things. It's something that you can do without a whole lot of pushing or pulling. You can articulate that story for yourselves day to day and why it is so important. So that would be one piece I would suggest that you do take away from your entire day with us here. Is how are you going to tell that story going forward, whether it's at one of these meetings or whether it's on your campus tomorrow.
If you don't remember anything that I said this afternoon, remember just one phrase. The best time to plant a tree is today. best time to plant a tree is today. If you wait for 10 years, you're 10 years behind. If you wait for 20 years, you're 20 years behind. And I'm not just talking about trees. Okay? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Where do you think the Kansas water plan is going to go?
You want my very honest? Okay. I think it's unfortunate.
And to be clear, one clarification, actually, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't think the aqueduct is officially part of the water.
No, it is not.
Okay, right.
It is not. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It hurts me to say this, but I think it will be on a shelf, maybe forever, but at least until we get our revenues and expenditures and budget situation sorted out. There's not much in the vision apart from personal conservation efforts that can be put into play. We can't build additional reservoir space, and there's not going to be any federal money to do that. We probably won't be able to do much dredging to get back the space that we once had when they were originally built. Agriculture is going to continue to use the water to irrigate until they, can't do it much longer. And there are counties in the western part of the state that really can't do much irrigation now. There are places that have quite a bit in reserve, but that's all going to change in the coming decades. So I think this is going to, I love it. I'm glad that they did it. I applaud that they did it. The process was very, very participatory. The River Basin Advisory Groups, the RACs, are continuing to meet, continuing to try to work on implementation, but minus the resources to fund what's determined as priority action items, it just is not going to occur. And we all went around the room and they identified some significant competing values for those tax dollars. And we haven't even gotten to the point in the discussion, this legislative session, that says this is how we're going to raise revenues. And I don't know how much longer it's going to take to get that discussion item addressed. So, honest opinion, there's not much in that that's going to move forward minus the dollars put behind it.
Yeah, there are some folks who look back at the last election cycle, particularly in the federal level, but you can probably say it like any place in the country, and argue that the political system in this country is broken, right? And it seems to me when we talk about these kinds of issues, even if all you care about is environmental issues, even if all you care about is water issues, or you're a single issue voter on whatever the issue is, until the political system begins to work, right? Can anything be addressed? And so I guess my question to you, coming back to leadership, right, is how do these folks engage in that activity? In other words, in order to clean up whatever mess you want to clean up, there's a political mess or a process you have to interact with to clean that up.
I think it goes back to what you said, longer term. We have to commit to having discussions about our future that are a decade out or 2 decades out or 3 decades out, not one election cycle away. And we're making our decisions one election cycle at a time, and that's not going to get us where we need to go when we're dealing with these very complex, wicked problems that we face. Whether it's water or healthcare or funding education, you name the topic. If we can't get past that election cycle in terms of trying to put in fixes in trying to really solve the problem, we're not going to get to the answers and the solutions that we need. Adaptive challenges require learning. Adaptive challenges require you being okay with making a little bit of progress at a time, not getting to the end solution in one giant leap. And they also require people to understand when you get to the solution, there are people that are going to feel a sense of loss and a sense of change in their lives. And aren't very many people that want to feel loss. Those are the tough decisions. That's leadership, is identifying that loss, speaking to that loss, and then helping those who are affected buy into the long-term solution. Okay? Thank you.